A family tradition.
In more ways than one. Gramps was the first Mecha Man. He died in the suit before I was born. Dad was killed fighting Shroud. That's when I took over. There was a little inheritance and the life insurance money.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize.
Just your run-of-the-mill, sad superhero origin story. The family tradition, if there is one, is dying in that suit. Which I guess I don't have to worry about anymore.
Well then, here is Robert Robertson, the infamous Mecha Man, the third in his lane, the one built from ground up to somewhat live an eventual untimely death. Such a sad little story that we have to now go through, creating such emphasis around the mantle of the Mecha Man, afraid if he ever tried and lived up to the mantle of the great Mecha Man, it will also be his death too. After many years of experience, heartbreak, and non-stop fighting villains/criminals, now he's a nobody, forgotten entirely as his legacy is left in ruins. The great Mecha Man is crushed, torn apart by whoever was left to fear his name. Now they'll be celebrating back to the streets, terrorizing civilians and the innocent people, as if all that sacrifice was for nothing, although he knew what he was getting into. But it never really made the truth any easier to digest. Likewise, when Icarus flew too close to the sun, burning him in the process. Now the only defining factor is his failure to even die an honorable death, like his father and his father before him. Notably, as Robert himself once said in this scene.
I've already been a hero, okay? You have no idea what I'm dealing with.
Oh, get out of here. At least you were born with powers. I don't have shit. So according to your dumbass theory, I should be an accountant.
You aren't far off.
Fate, destiny, not having powers, seasonal depression, none of these things kept me
From being a hero before. And they won't keep me from being a hero again.
For any other protagonist, this truth will hit hard, indefinitely shaking anyone to their core, a moment of somewhat clarity. But for Robert here, he'd been thinking about this ever since. He knew the price had to be paid, either by him or in some people's lives. No choice was ever given to him to reevaluate, to start fresh, to lead a similar life. He'd been chosen by the mantle itself, either to let it burn or to build it from scratch. However, as he's destined for the role, he can never truly escape its grip. He will be chased by it till the end of his life. The expectations that come from it, the legacy of death running through his veins. We see bits and pieces of how much this does affect him, in his pauses, in his worry, and most of all the anger that comes from the pain that he had to endure. While many were simply watching the next firecracker go boom, I for one were affected surely by his sobbing, by his cry for help that sounded not intentional, but by the way he had to forcibly let it leave his chest. From our beloved Telltale series, both Batman and The Walking Dead, I had many characters whom I mostly adored and buried deep within my heart to this very day. But here is Robert Robertson. He was another surprise in my world of favorite fictional characters. He carried forward, although he had next to no desire to. No home, no mantle, no legacy to live up to no more. It was the Mecha Man, and the Mecha Man was dead. Either he had to stop at nothing to carry the name, or he could have just let it stay dead. Eventually, by the end of the story, as we get close to it, we see the man who became more than just the mantle of the Mecha Man. One of my favorite dialogue options personally is from him, when he introduces himself as Robert Robertson, even though he had to once and for all reveal his identity to the team. And now that he wants to, he remembers nothing of the recollection of the infamous Mecha Man. He seeks to find himself, as though the story we see this man change, become more than simply a burnt-out mantle. And when he decides to spare Shroud, of course, as my many playthroughs were spread out, I spared him, the bastard, as there is no point to ever dirtying the hands of Robert here. although I may or may not have choked him to death in my second or the third playthrough. And also any other playthrough after that, I mean, you can't blame me here. This doesn't really tell anything about our boy Robert here, it mostly speaks on my behalf, which I am an evil bastard too. Looking at the opposite side of the spectrum, there is Robert's actual love interest in the game. For me, the way I have always interpreted the romance options in these types of games are how they tell you more about the main character itself, or precisely how they affect us as the players in the long run. Considering Robert's background with villains and the rehabilitation of their behavioral, psychological well-being, I can truly see how he'll be hesitant or even unwilling to even try and give it this shot. As we see in the game itself, Robert is not in actuality much of a reluctant guy to this idea. Or perhaps he is, because he also is to some level has this resentment towards these people, towards their beliefs and the chaos they will bring to the world. This by itself is a reason to shake you to the core of your bones. Even when this statement is brought up, you can read Robert's expression on his face, by how he's pausing and trying to find the appropriate word. For me, as the story progresses, he seeks and tries to understand them, to hear from them and to create dynamics with them, especially as he may choose InvisiGal based on your naughty preferences. I, for one, see Robert growing and flourishing in the idea of rehabilitation, of him opening up to InvisiGal and letting the former villain make him a better hero because of it, and slowly creating a new and more rich and complex characteristics in him, as he'll seek to make more of himself and his beliefs in the long run. And in the other hand, if you pick Blonde Blazer, although she is also one heck of a romance option, it will also somewhat keep his character progression in a constant place, in my opinion, from the start to the end. And yes, lovely folk, I know how he'll still eventually open up to the team, including InvisiGal, but the eventuality of this couple happening, especially from Robert's point of view, I can really see Blonde Blazer as a safe choice for him, and his beliefs too. But to open up his heart to a former criminal, now that's some deep cut ideology and also psychology of this character, making us second guess Robert on how he'll be pretentious or how he fall for an enemy who's waiting for a final blow. At its core, the story is about inevitability. Robert Robertson was never afraid of dying, he was afraid of becoming worthy of dying. The mantle of the Mecha Man was never hope, it was a contract, written long before Robert ever had a choice. Generation after generation, it promised the same ending, to where it meant accepting that life that was meant to last, only to burn brightly and end violently. Robert grows up knowing this, not learning it, knowing it. So when the mecha is destroyed, something worse than death happens. The contract breaks. Robert doesn't fall in battle. He doesn't die a hero. He survives. And the survival was never part of his legacy. This is why seeing the streets return to chaos hurts more than any wound. Villain celebrating his absence isn't just crime returning. It's the world telling him that everything he sacrificed was temporary, that it didn't last. The Icarus comparison fits perfectly for this character. Robert didn't fly too close to the sun because of arrogance, he flew because the sky was the only place he was allowed to exist. And now, instead of turning to ash, he's forced to live with the fall. And that's worse than any kind of death here. When Robert says that death is the legacy of Mecha Man, it isn't a realization, it's a confession, one he has carried for years. Unlike most protagonists, this truth doesn't shock him. What breaks him is the story doesn't end the way it was supposed to. That's why his pauses matter here. They aren't hesitation, they're restraint. Every silence is Robert stopping himself from asking the same question. If I didn't die for this, then what was I for? With Mecha Man gone, Robert loses his excuses, no armor to justify violence, no legacy to hide behind, just a man who has decided once and for all whether being a hero still matters that much, without anyone watching. This gives weight to every choice he makes. The Spreading Shroud isn't mercy for its own sake, it's Robert refusing to let the mantle decide to shape his hand. Violence is what he inherited, restraint is what he chooses. What the player does afterward reflects us, not him. And then there is love. Blonde Blazer represents safety, familiar ground, a version of Robert that stays aligned with the rules he has always lived by. Choosing her keeps him emotionally consistent with the man he was before the fall. InvisiGal here, in my naughty professors, is different. She's the Risk, a former villain, standing in direct opposition to everything Robert believed in. Choosing her means accepting that his worldview may have been incomplete, that people can change, and that redemption doesn't weaken a hero, it reshapes one. This is where truly Robert grows up. Not only louder, not only stronger than ever, but deeper. He begins to understand that meaning that doesn't have to be inherited. That legacy doesn't have to end in death. When Robert introduces himself as simply Robert Robertson, it is the most important moment in this story. No title, no armor, no mythology to stand behind the face. Just a man choosing to exist without the weight of his name or his father before. Mecha Man is not reborn, and that's the point of it all. What remains is something rarer than a hero. A man who survives and refuses to let survival be meaningless. Robert Robertson doesn't accept his legacy. He disarms it like any other. And in doing so, he becomes more than just a mantle ever allowed him to be. And so guys, thank you so much again for watching. It's been a long while since I posted anything. Just not only because of the things that have been currently happening in my country, but also things that I am facing in my everyday life. And hopefully, just getting back to the business as usual will also make my heart bounce. So thank you again for watching, and guys, please stay tuned to the next video arrive, because I can't wait for you to see it. Till the next time, see ya.
Jerk off in this thing?
You low, busy.
I mean, obviously you have, right? I should really be asking how often.
Hey, come on. I gotta work on this.
All the time, actually.
Bro.
I like to bust after every big bust, you know, and I was pretty successful, so you can imagine.
Sounds like loads of fun.
You two got one weird energy going on, huh?